The Valley of Missouri Valley Basketball Podcast. I'm Dr. Bowser, joined by Brian Dutler, Chad Harberts, and John Gunderson. And tonight we're jumping in with an emergency episode because the Missouri Valley Conference just announced perhaps one of the biggest changes to Arch Madness in decades. Beginning in 2027, both the men's and women's tournaments will be played in St. Louis during the same week, under the same roof, under the same Arch Madness banner. The conference is also moving to a new 10-team format that rewards the regular season more heavily than ever before. And quite possibly the most polarizing change is that the number 1 and number 2 seeds will earn byes into the semifinals on Saturday. There's a lot of questions. Do these changes improve Arch Madness? Will it bring more visibility to Valley women's basketball? Will fans embrace it? What happens to some of the traditions we've come to know? We're going to unpack all of it. Let's get deep into the Valley. So, boys, general reactions. Let's start with first reactions. When you saw the announcement come across your phone, your laptop, or wherever you get your news, what was your immediate thought? Chad, let's start with you.
Well, it's not surprising to me. Until 2 years ago, I'd spent the previous 14 years in Las Vegas, which hosts more college basketball NCAA qualifying tournaments than any city in America. You see several conferences bring both teams to Vegas the same week. Now, Vegas also has about a dozen different arenas between the casinos and T-Mobile and everything else. So they don't play in the same venue, but they play in the same city at the same time. And from a crowd standpoint, it's pretty crazy. You go downtown in Vegas during the right week, you're going to see more Washington State fans you've ever seen in your life, or more BYU fans you've ever seen in your life. It's crazy how they take over the town. But it doesn't surprise me because there really is no great place for the women's tournament to be held. It was in Coralville last year. That's great for you and I. That's great for Drake. Not so good for Murray State. Not so good for Evansville. It was in Evansville before that. Really bad for a lot of schools. So I think bringing them under one roof, I think that helps in more ways than it hurts.
Brian, what about you? First reaction.
Yeah, first reaction, I think, first of all, the positive side of it is the additional kind of umph that the women's tournament is going to get, because it is going to be with that Arch Madness banner. And when you end up having kind of the way that weekend works, you have the major women college basketball tournaments are played that first weekend of March, followed by the mid-major to the small major conferences with their championship games are played that weekend. And then that second weekend of March is completely flipped. So you got the majors, the major men, and then you got the mid-major and the smaller conference on the women's side. So I think elevating the women's conference in the women's basketball tournament, I think, is a knockout great idea. Putting it inside Enterprise, which we've been kind of speculating on that, how that was going to look, but using the same building is going to have a little bit of symbiotic relationship with that, which is going to tie it in real nicely. The thing that kind of sticks out on my side, kind of on the negative side for the men's side, is it truly as far as the competitive advantage or the disadvantage that is perceived within the conference. Since 2020, we're taking a look about the same teams and the same metric numbers. It's going to be a huge advantage, obviously, being able to be the 1 seed or 2 seed. I think we're protecting the 1 and the 2 seeds way too much compared to tournaments past. And we're dealing with similar teams across the board. And would like to see maybe the 1 and 2 seeds play a little bit earlier than that. But just overall, I think it's an elevation for the women's game. And I think it's actually it's a hindrance and maybe de-elevates the importance of the Valley and where it stands in mid-major conference basketball.
John?
I love it overall. What I would call double bye to the semifinals, I think, is what's setting off most fans, and the 4-day experience on the men's side. So it'll be interesting to me how they're going to do the television. They're going to have them on the same day. I do think it's driven a lot by the television package. I think it's wonderful for the women's game because Chad covers you and I women, and he was at Coralville last year. He said it was great, but it's not the same. So I think it's going to be overall positive. The double bye, I think, the more I think about it, is probably more beneficial for the women because the Missouri Valley women have had more opportunity to put 2 teams in the NCAA. And I think it may help the women get 2 teams in. But I think a lot of that has to do with how can we get huge crowds for TV on Saturday and Sunday? And how can we get a team that isn't knocked out and maybe have a shot at 2 teams? I think that's a factor also.
I would tell you this, I'm not a fan of the double bye. I think when you look at the conferences that have gone to the double bye, you're looking at one big bid leagues, in my opinion. And I understand that the Valley has become a one big bid league the last few years. But on the men's side, there was a long stretch, more than a decade, where I believe that part of Arch Madness, part of the madness, was that the favorite didn't win Arch Madness. A second team came up out of nowhere. Even if it was a 2 or 3 seed, they came up out of nowhere, they won the Arch Madness, and then both teams got bids. And so I'm not a big fan of that. And you guys know, as a big fan of the underdog that I am absolutely rooting for whoever is playing the 1 and 2 seed, as long as it's not Northern Iowa on Saturday this year, because I still want chaos and I still want madness to happen. So that's me. And so let's dive into the next question. This move was approved by the MVC Board of Directors, which are the presidents and chancellors of the member institutions. So let me ask you this. What do you think the president saw from a data perspective that convinced them that this was the right move? Chad, let's start with you.
I think number one, I can't imagine that the women's tournament makes a ton of money floating around at different sites the last few years. I think the building, they were going to pay for the building for 4 days anyway. You're still paying for it for 4 days. I think you save some money there. I hadn't thought about this just a minute ago, but now that it's the same week, the women will get a full week off, whoever wins it, before they go into the NCAAs, which I think is a big deal because they haven't had that in the past. So that's a nice thing. But it also, Chris, it smacks of a reaction to last year's tournament. And no one will ever admit that, from the Valley office all the way to any one of the universities. From an MVC standpoint, from a number 1, number 2 seed standpoint, seeing Drake lay the wood to Belmont in the quarterfinals, and then seeing Northern Iowa upset 3 straight higher seeds and win the tournament, that probably didn't sit well with the 1 and 2 seeds. But nonetheless, the 1 and 2 seeds did not like the fact that Drake and Northern Iowa wrecked the bracket.
I think that's absolutely right. The other thing that I would say there, maybe as a piggyback to that, is that you say that nobody in the Valley office wants to admit it, but isn't it interesting that every college basketball pundit on X, and like John Rothstein and those guys, that's actually the first sentence that they use after they say, here's what's coming. They say, well, number 9 seed beat number 1 seed Belmont last year in the quarters. I'm like, I didn't see anybody clamoring for change. 1 seeds have lost before on Friday. And so 2 seeds have lost before on Friday. Sometimes there's chaos. That's what makes postseason basketball so exciting. That,
look at the bigger picture. From a national standpoint, you've got the Power 4 conferences that are trying to protect their teams in the NCAA tournament. They like to see all these mid-majors, all of them just go away and have it be a 40-team Power 4 tournament. So it's happening on a national scale, and now we're seeing it scaled down to Arch Madness. We're protecting the so-called haves against the have-nots.
Chris, let me add one other thing in. Last year, just think about it from a timing standpoint. Now days matter in NCAA basketball. Belmont got knocked out on Friday. That's 9 days before Selection Sunday. Their coach gone, just like that. Their entire team evaporates. Their NIT bid they turned down. They might have won the NIT. So when you think about it from an MVC perspective, that's really a kind of a disaster because they were a great club. Hey, more power to the coach and the players that moved on, but that team evaporated, I think in part of the timing and the fact they got knocked out so fast. So I think things like that also factor in, and I would have loved to have seen Belmont playing the NIT. Illinois State darn near won the thing. I think that factors in also, and there's a lot of moving parts, and being the biggest tournament 7 days before Selection Sunday, the MVC kind of kicks it off as number 9 conference in the nation. I think the days matter.
I don't disagree there. It's something that folks that go to Arch Madness every year say. It begins here, right? March Madness begins at Arch Madness. And I think the only thing that I think a lot of fans are reacting to today are 2 things that I'm reacting to. I just think I don't like gifting the number 1 and 2 seeds a bye into the semifinals. And I really don't like excluding one of the programs. And we'll talk about that later. I've got some questions specifically about excluding the program and what that could do from a longevity standpoint to fan bases, alumni bases, that Arch Madness might be a part of something that they do every year. But if their alumni, if their alma mater isn't there, are they going? And so those are questions I have for later. Chad, one thing I wanted to ask you, you've worked in athletics at multiple Division I institutions. Decisions like that don't happen overnight. The committee made that decision, but what kind of information do you think the conference office was presenting to the athletic directors and the presidents before this decision was made?
Well, I think even though you want to say all the schools are equal, you want to probably protect your higher seeds, because obviously the conference office wants as many teams in the NCAA tournament as possible and wants any teams that do get in to go as far as possible, because then that money starts to add up. It gets distributed. That's a big deal. And yes, if your 6th seed goes to the tournament, they're less likely to win a first round game than your 1 seed, because first of all, they're going to get a way worse seed. They're always looking, it's always revenue driven. You always follow the money. You always follow the money. And the Valley is going to want their 1 seed to win the tournament and go as deep as they can in the NCAAs. They want to see a Florida Atlantic situation. They want to see any one of those schools the last 10 years that have suddenly made a run to the Final Four. The Valley wants that to happen very badly.
Wichita State and Loyola, they would like that. Brian, as a fan, does it change any of your initial reaction or perspective knowing that this was likely made through a business decision lens rather than a basketball lens?
I think in the fan perspective is we always talk about the family reunion kind of aspect side of it, everybody getting together to have a good time. And that's still going to happen. It's just different parameters as far as this situation and the changeover. And it'll be interesting to see when they start. We don't have a heck of a lot of details other than the change been made, but on a logistics side of things, and when you're going to start having sessions and what these sessions look like. Because we all know that when you're going to try to play 4 games on a Saturday, you can start them at 11 o'clock, you can start them at noon, whatever. We know that last game in that arena is not going to be done until between 10:30 and midnight. And then you flip that around, and what does that look like depending upon who your TV partners for Championship Sunday are going to be. And if you've got the 11 o'clock time slot like what we had this year, where is the men's and where is the women's games are going to be when it comes to scheduling? So I think that is on my side, it kind of, you don't want to scream, get off my yard kind of deal, but I'm going to really pay attention quite closely to how this gets scheduled out, what these sessions look like before I really, truly want to make a strong, hard hitting opinion.
You bet.
And Brian's right, because TV is going to demand a 45-minute window between games. TV is going to demand a bigger window, which is going to push those games later and later.
I think so too. So let's talk about the new format. You're segueing perfectly into my next written down thing. So the tournament schedule that was released today, what I saw was women's opening round on Wednesday, March 3rd, 4 games. Thursday, March 4th is the men's opening round, 4 games. Then Friday, March 5th, 2 women's games, 2 men's games, 4 games. And then Saturday, 2 women's games, 2 men's games. And then Sunday, 2 games, a women's championship. I think, let's say that what we're used to, right, which is noon, 2:30, 6, and 8:30 are traditional starting times. And so thinking about that schedule, Brian, and Chad just mentioned the 45-minute window, I'm going to make an assumption for the group today. Opening round games are going to be on ESPN+. I don't think they're going to be picked up by CBS College Sports. So I think Wednesday and Thursday are probably streaming service. And so you might not have the window that Chad was talking about, but let's say Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, CBS College Sports picks up at least the men's and hopefully the women's, and then CBS National hopefully still has the rights to the men's championship game. Women's championship game, I'm not sure. But what do you think about that tournament schedule? And I have some ticketing questions first, but let's talk about first. What do you think about that schedule? 4 games, women's games Wednesday, 4 men's games Thursday, 2 and 2 on Friday and Saturday, and then a women's and a men's championship on Sunday.
I actually like in this schedule going Wednesday and Thursday, but we're always trying to think of a different arena. I think when it does come to TV, I think you're spot on. It is going to be ESPN Plus on that Wednesday, Thursday. You're definitely probably looking a bit on Friday as well. But are we going to pair men with men and women with women, or are they going to alternate? Because I think there again, too, depending upon your television partner, it's what you're talking about. You could have different, you could be a CBS Sports Network game for the men at the first game on Saturday, and they'll come back at that 6 o'clock game. And then you're doing ESPN Plus for your afternoon game at 2:30 and your late evening game. So I think the schedule wise is going to be pretty interesting. I like the day off for the ladies to make sure that everything be in the same arena. But that Sunday is going to be a bear, depending upon who's playing that last game and when that championship game is going to be scheduled.
I think you're looking at, if you're lucky, you're looking at a 12, 2:35, 7:30 those first 2 days. You're not going to get that lucky, unfortunately, but that's what would be the ideal thing. What you're going to end up with is a 2, 4:30, 7, and probably a late game, like a 9, 9:30 the first 2 days to accommodate TV. Sunday, the men's game's typically been 11 a.m., hasn't it? So yeah, you can probably play the women's game after the men's game to accommodate what's probably going to be ESPN Plus, I would guess. But I think those first 2 days are going to be bears for that bottom seed.
John, any thoughts on schedule?
I think on schedule, I think it's going to work out exactly like Dut and Chad said. I think it's actually really good. If you can take out the buys out of your mind, you're like, oh, that sounds great. 4 games, 4 games, 4 games, 4 games, 2 on the final. If you can remove the numbers and the buys, I think it really flows well. And it keeps people in around the arena for 5 straight days.
I think that's actually, when you look at it that way, that is the most intriguing part to me. As we start to talk about ticketing and who's going to buy tickets, it'll be really interesting to me to see if just the casual fan stays for all 4 games each day. And that's going to be probably my biggest deal. Chad, as a member of the media, is a decision like this maybe more cost effective to cover 2 events in the same location in 4 days?
Absolutely. It might be the first decision made to benefit the media from a sports franchise in 25 years. In an era where there's no more media meals, I can't even park near the Unidome. It might be the only media-friendly decision I've heard of in 25 years. But yeah, it makes it way more likely because you're just going to Airbnb your hotel for 3 or 4 nights. And you're going to have teams for sure the first 2 days. I think it makes it a lot more likely that media from a number of schools now comes for the whole week because we're all stretched thin. The Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier is a 2-man sports department. Jim went down to St. Louis when Northern Iowa made their run. And then after covering state basketball, I made the run over to Coralville literally like a day or 2 later to cover the women's tournament. I think from that standpoint, from a media standpoint, it'll be great for some of those small market teams that come there. I think it'd be great for maybe their student newspaper can come. Maybe they'll get a TV station to come.
Let's expand the conversation about ticketing and fan experience. We know both tournaments in St. Louis under the same roof, but we don't know what we don't know yet is how fans are going to access. And so I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on these topics. And at this point, it's all speculation. But will all session tickets include both men's and women's games? Brian, as a fan, what would you want?
As a fan, I'll be in the arena pretty much the whole time, every single day I'm there. I'll be exposed to the women's game more so than what I have been because other than catching a few UNI or women's games on the Plus, I'm not really spending a lot of time watching the Valley when it comes to the women's side of the game. That's where I think it's going to be interesting to see if there are some mixed sessions early on that Friday. I can see mixed session on Friday where if you got your ticket to the first session, you're going to get a men's game, you're going to get a ladies game. Same thing in the afternoon session, you're going to get a men's and a women's. I think on Saturday, that's when they'll make the determination. There'll be a men's session, there'll be a ladies session, and then that'll feed based off of whatever the championship game times are going to be. So it'll be interesting where that championship game is at. So I think it's exposure wise, I think there's a lot of people they'll be able to take in some of the ladies games. But Biles, we've been in that arena plenty of times. We know what the attendance draw is going to be. Is that everybody will be in the arena for the first game of the day. It'll be your 2 teams. And then whoever plays that second game, midway through the second half is when a lot of those fans start to arrive. And then you'll have that first game will sit there and they'll be in the arena till maybe about 10 minutes to 8 minutes left in the first half. And the ones that aren't committed, they're bolting for the door anyway. I can see some increased attendance. I don't think it's going to be this huge increase where the entire lower bowl is full and we're raising the curtains yet. I don't see that happening. And even on Championship Sunday, it's still going to be that lower bowl, and hopefully people will stick around. I just don't see it making that huge of an impact.
Chad, from a conference perspective, what's a good balance between accessibility to the games you want to see, the programs you want to watch, and revenue generation?
Well, when I'm thinking about what you're saying about tickets, I helped facilitate the NAIA tournament in Kansas City for a number of years when we were the TV partner. And the one thing I know is it's impossible to clear a big arena. You just can't do it. So I think from a ticket standpoint, you're really looking at three options. One, all tournament pass, every day, every game, a day pass, and then individual tickets. I don't think you can think, hey, we're going to run the 2 women's games and then clear the arena and sell a separate ticket to the 2 men's games. I just don't think it's viable because that clearing of the arena takes so much time. It's almost not worth the hassle. So I think they're going to have to keep it simple. I would hope they keep it simple for the fans because I'm a guy who likes basketball. I would go do that. If I had 1 ticket gets me 4 games, I'm loving that. And so I think that's kind of the Valley's attitude is let's do this and let's minimize our risk. Let's figure out what is the biggest bang for a buck. There are going to have to be some creative things. And so you got to be creative in how you do this if you want to get Northern Iowa fans to come watch Evansville and Belmont play before the Northern Iowa game. You're going to have to do some creative things there. But I think, again, it's always about money. It's always about money. But I think it's about, let's not lose money. Let's ratchet down our costs, our travel expenses for the schools. Let's get both teams at the same site. And also don't discount the fact that nobody wants to work both tournaments. They're loving this, the conference office. Yep. They don't want to have to go work 2 separate tournaments at 2 separate sites. So that's big too. So they're going to ratchet down the conference office costs as well. But it's really going to be about don't lose money. Let's make a little bit. Let's try to get our best teams to the NCAAs and hope for the best.
I want to hear all 3 of your guys' perspective on this one. Here's a practical question I've been asking myself all day long. If I'm a fan of the number 1 or number 2 seed and my team doesn't play till Saturday now, am I still buying an all-session package and coming to St. Louis on Wednesday or Thursday? Or am I waiting until Saturday and buying a single session ticket? And is there a risk of the Valley and the Sports Commission in St. Louis maybe butting heads a little bit on lost hotel, Airbnb, hotel, or food and beverage revenue downtown? Is that a risk?
Chris, let me jump in on that one because I was looking at the 990s today for the Missouri Valley Conference. I was going through the financials that they share, and attendance in the sessions has been going down from the 50,000s total now to last year. I think it was 36 and some change for total attendance. It's been on a slide. So there's no 2 ways around it. And I think overall bringing them together, you're going to get more overall revenue, my opinion. Yes, do I think we're going to have some teams only show up on Saturday? But if it happens to be Bradley or Illinois State or Southern Illinois, they're going to make a lot of money on the tickets because they're close and they have big fan bases. But 3 years ago in the 990s, the MVC started breaking those expense lines out. So the Missouri Valley Conference costs versus expenses. And they also started breaking out the regional TV, ESPN Plus costs and expenses. And when you look at, and I was doing the math, when you look at the MVC tournament, it's not a moneymaker, according to the last financials they had in the 23-24 year. So it's financially driven. And the other thing Chad mentioned and Brian kind of mentioned, the staff gets to work one event. The Missouri Valley has made, as a conference, they have had over $1 million in drop net revenue, $1.3 million. So we were joking about it today when we texted. What was the Christmas bonus for that staff this year? Was it the Jelly of the Month Club or was it the pool?
Right.
The Jelly of the Month Club. So that factors into it. And I think overall, that's why I'm a proponent of what they're doing. I have problems with the bye, but I think attendance is going to go up because right now it's a declining asset for St. Louis. It's not making the money it did for them 15 years ago. That's just math. And that's the truth.
Fair enough.
Well, along with that, the conference isn't what it was as far as team makeup wise, right? When you take a look at the history of Arch Madness, when you had Creighton, you had Wichita State, and then when Loyola got good, started to fill the arena as well. So you had some natural draw. The other side of this is with Missouri State being gone, we can call them out a little bit on this deal too, as part of the declining attendance. Missouri State did not help the Valley at all the last 5 years they were in the conference when it comes to this tournament. Back when the conference, when you started having those 55, 60,000 attendance Arch Madnesses, you look, Missouri State was good, Southern Illinois was good. Illinois State maybe wasn't necessarily as good, but either them or Bradley would take care of that Central Illinois portion. And you had a lot of people that were attending those games. Now, you take a look over the last 5 years when it's the Drake and Northern Iowa Open, we know the Valley is not that happy with the attendance figures because you don't have your team in maroon and you don't have your couple team in reds that are going to take over that ticket base.
Can I piggyback on that, Dut? Because
yeah.
I think last year Belmont was the number 1 seed. And I think they might have sold the least amount of tickets as the number 1 seed ever. And so I don't think our new brethren in the league still haven't really fully embraced attending Arch Madness. And so if Belmont and Murray are the number 1 seeds, are they going to maybe show up? Maybe they're going to show up in more force for one day instead of, hey, I got to dive in and come on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or I got to buy an all session pass. And so maybe John is right. Maybe they have a larger fan base for one day. Because Nashville's not that far away from St. Louis. Murray, if it's not a little bit farther, it's almost equidistant to Carbondale. We should be getting bigger crowds. Chad, what do you think about if you're a fan of a 1 or 2 seed school and you don't have to be there till Saturday? When you showing up at Arch Madness?
Well, if I'm the Valley, I'm incentivizing this is what I'm doing. I got a 5-day tournament, correct?
Yep.
Well, I'm the Valley. Well, here's what I'm saying. And I'm going to keep the math really simple just so we can explain it. But I'm going to say, okay, if you want an all tournament pass, 5 days, it's $100 a ticket. If you're only going to come to the semifinals, that day is $50. If you're only going to come to the championship day, that ticket's $75. In just general terms, what they're going to say is, if you buy more sessions, we're going to give you a cheaper ticket. Because what you're going to really try to do is get the fans, no matter when they come, they're paying basically the same $100, whether it's for all 5 days or just the semifinals or just the finals. And that's how they're going to try to make their money, is incentivize it to go over more of the days. Does that mean that people are going to say, I can pay $20 a day for 5 days, but for what I pay for the hotel, it doesn't make any sense. I'm still going to come and just pay the more for the semifinals or the more for championship day. That's still going to happen. The market for the sports dollar has gotten thinner and thinner. There's so many more entertainment options than just going to sporting events. And there's also this whole factor. There's a lot of people who just don't want to leave their home after work to go do anything. They don't want to go to the movies. They don't want to go to a restaurant. They don't want to go to a sporting event. So you're chasing that whole mentality too. There's people who are be like, hey, that game's on ESPN Plus that I'm already paying for. Do I really want to drive to St. Louis and see the same thing? So they're going to chase that. And the Valley's going to fight that. They're going to chase how teams are performing. Obviously, if SIU would go deep, that is big. Aren't they the closest school to St. Louis? I'm going to guess. State, one of those two, are going to be a much bigger draw than if Belmont or Murray State or Northern Iowa goes, or Drake.
Right. And so we've kind of talked about the front end of the 1 and 2 seeds getting a double bye into the semifinals, but what about the losers in this? And let's talk about the team that doesn't get there. When we were freshmen and sophomores at the Valley only brought 8 schools, 8 of the 10 schools to the conference tournament. And I will tell you what it felt like the year that we didn't make it, my junior year. It was absolutely devastating. And what I was lucky enough that Dan Buckley from the conference office called and asked if I wanted to volunteer at the tournament. And so I still got to go, but my alma mater or my school wasn't there. I guess I'm just curious about what your guys' thoughts are as a fan. or as somebody that covers a program, if your team isn't a part of Arch Madness, are you still going? What about some of these foundation offices that maybe use this as a fundraising opportunity and then all of a sudden their school isn't going? I'd love to get all three of you guys' perspective on that question. What about these programs, one on the women's side, one on the men's side now, that don't get a chance to go to St. Louis?
Well, in the day of increased participation is what we're led to believe, we're actually decreasing participation in the flagship event that the Valley has on the men's side and on the women's side. So that's the disappointing side. I know, Bows, that year sucked. Like I said on an earlier podcast, by early February, we knew we weren't going to the conference tournament. There was no chance of going record-wise. And it's kind of disheartening that you miss out on that opportunity, one on the men's side, one on the ladies' side, to miss out on that Arch Madness experience, which it's a great thing. As far as fan base-wise goes, I can promise you that if Northern Iowa wasn't making the tournament in 2027, if I wasn't doing this, I probably wouldn't go. There's no reason to go if my team's not going to be there. And I think you might see, hopefully what this will do is cause some of the bottom of the conference that have traditionally been at the bottom side of this to hopefully start to increase some of their spending and in some of their recruiting, and to get a little bit more level playing field on the bottom side of the conference. And so we're not always seeing the same teams in both sides always be the team that's left out.
I was at UMKC when they finally joined the conference back in the day, and their initial thought was always, well, now we're just 3 games away from the NCAA tournament. We just got to win 3 games in March and we're there. Now, that was never going to happen because you were never going to beat Bryce Drew and Valparaiso, but they could say they were 3 games away. But it's going to be tough for the coach and the kids who don't make it, because that coach is going to be in the hot seat. Those kids are going to be thinking, if I can go anywhere else, up or down, where I can play in the NCAA tournament or play for a program that I know is going to at least make the conference tournament, that 11th team is going to face some real hurdles while the rest of the conference is playing the tournament. And those fans are not going to go. They're not going to go watch Arch Madness. And they're going to be calling for their coach and their players, like, what's going on here? I mean, 10 of 11 get to go. And how are you guys number 11?
I would say, Bows, for me, if there was more like 12 or 13 teams in the Valley, then I would have maybe a little more heartburn. But since it's just one and it fits into this 4-4-4-2 approach, I think it's unfortunate that when you're in 11, your program's going to be in a lot of trouble, and it's going to be a turbulent time anyway. And I don't think your fans are going to show up to the event anyway. So I'm sad for them, but I also think when you get in that position, you're going to pay the price for being 11th. And that's just the way it's going to go.
Right. 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure that my alma mater, your alma mater, lost to an 11 seed on Friday night. So not that they can't win, right? And the one thing that I will say about the Valley over the course of the last handful of years is the margins between third place and 11th place are razor thin. And so that's the thing that really gives me heartburn. I worry about the long-term consequences. Brian, you said it. What if there is a team that is historically been on, back in the day, played on Thursday night, right? And so maybe they're still there. What are the long-term consequences? Maybe they're saying we don't need to be in this league anymore. And then what if they opt out, or the Valley says, you finished 11th for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe we'll just trim our conference back down to 10 schools.
And that's always an option, right? And that kind of opens up the old wound within the Valleys, is public versus private. And we start taking a look at this point in time with the imbalance of an odd number, having the 6 public institutions versus the 5 private institutions. You know, that is always an option to happen. And maybe it's not necessarily growth that we're looking for. Maybe it's addition by subtraction.
It's not a great anything. And so really, what I hope will come out of this is that a couple of Valley teams do get in the tournament, do make some noise. So I hope anybody gets in there and goes a couple of rounds and makes some noise, and then says, hey, I'd rather be the king of the Valley than be somebody in a much bigger league with much deeper pockets. And now the Valley has that flag again. Hey, we're a tough conference. We're a conference you don't want to face in the regular season. We're a conference you don't want to face in the postseason. That's what the Valley needs to get back to. And that is the biggest money issue of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Units. We need more units in the NCAA tournament. Valley office lived off for a long time those units from 04, 05, 06, from the Final Four run from Wichita and Loyola. And we just haven't made runs in the tournament. But listen, we've spoken to 4 head coaches in person, and I don't know what you guys have taken away from that, but I know that there's 4 head coaches that are working really hard to do that in their programs. It's been really exciting talking to those guys. I mean, when you hang up the phone from those calls, I'm ready to run through a wall from those guys, and I can't even run anymore. And I'm excited about the first coaches that we've spoken to, the leadership in those 4 programs, and what they're trying to do to rebuild kind of the brand of Valley basketball. So I think that's really good. So today, Commissioner Jeff Jackson talked a little bit about the move is about expanding the event scale, boosting fan engagement, and strengthening the league's future. And then, by the way, I think, John, you made a really good point of this. You dropped this huge mic about this is what we're doing, but then they don't give any details about what they're doing. And so they'll slow roll that out over the course of the next few months. Right. And so what can the Valley do to increase fan engagement and in this new format?
Well, Chris, let me jump in on that because I've been thinking a lot about it from the women's perspective. I've been going to the SEC Women's Tournament because my niece was a coach on the staff. I'm probably the only person in Iowa who's ever rooted against Caitlin Clark on some very big games. But anyway, my niece is on the staff, so I went to the South Carolina event, and they were able to build in Greenville the SEC Women's Tournament into a real event. And I think bringing them together, they're going to be able to have a lot more stuff outside. They're going to just do a much better job. I think they're going to bring them more of an event, like an Arch Madness for everyone. And I think long-term, that is going to benefit the tournament. Right now, it is about the games, but what happens outside the event side is almost as big as the games. That's how you get people to show up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be a real benefit long-term. Because I just feel like those two, men's and women's, can work together. And the women's game inside the MVC is not getting the same coverage. It's a growing coverage. And it's interesting to me, the women's game and interest is going up in total, and the men's game is more struggling. But I think we're seeing a resurgence in college basketball all over the country. And I think this creates an opportunity to capitalize on that.
I hope you're right, John.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I hope you're right, John, with increased exposure and things along those lines. I've seen Arch Madness be the same year after year after year, regardless of the teams. Mm-hmm. And you guys have already said multiple times, follow the money. And I look at the entities that will be a part of this is going to be is Ballpark Village. And even though there's a little conference affiliation with the product that gets down there on Wednesday, Thursday, before and after games, I think it's going to be, we're putting this thing together in one arena. We're saving a bunch of money on the expense side, and the experience and ambiance outside of the arena is going to be somebody else's problem because it's never, ever been a focus of the conference. Hopefully they would change. Because this gives them the opportunity to do that. But if it's just going to be kind of roll out the balls and see what happens, that's the result we're going to get.
You know, yesterday I was watching the 30 for 30 doc Requiem for the Big East again. I probably watched it 40 or 50 times because it's just a fantastic documentary. And when you watch that, you realize what they were selling were coach personalities, player personalities. That's what they were selling. They had all these coaches who acted like they didn't like each other when they basically really did, but they're also wild. They were kind of almost lunatics in a lot of ways, in the best possible way. And you felt like when you saw these teams play on TV, you knew these guys. Like you never met them, but you knew them. I mean, you knew all these different personalities that were coaching in the league at that time. You knew Boeheim, you knew John Thompson, you knew these guys. And I think what you have to do with the Valley is you've got to play up the individual people that are going to be there, the coaches and the players. There's some great individual players. There's some great individual coaches. And then you've got to find a way, while they're trying to win basketball games, to also give the fans some access to those people, so they have people to latch on and root for on other teams if their team's not playing in that particular game. And I know Northern Iowa does it with 3 or 4 times a year. They have the teams go up on the pavilion and do autographs with the fans. I think you've got to sell. You can't sell the Valley as UIC, Southern Illinois, Evansville, Drake, North. You can't sell it that way because outside of the people that are already in the Valley, nobody knows those teams. They really don't. They might have heard of the name, but come the postseason, they've seen none of those teams play if you're outside the Valley. But if you've got some great coaching stories, some great individual stories that you can sell, that the SIDs have to sell, and certainly the conference office needs to sell the hell out of, now you can get some people hooked in to the whole tournament. And that's what you got to do. I mean, Tanya Warren's been doing it for 19 years. Got a great personality, engaging to talk to, loves to talk about basketball. You got to give her an opportunity to sell that personality during Valley Week. You've got to hook into some of these stories that we don't know. We know because we're in the Valley, but nobody else knows. Because you know this, guys, when you watch the Big Ten tournament, you know who those coaches are. You know who those players are like. You've met them before, but you haven't. But you know them because you've seen them play and you've heard about them. We got to do the same thing with the Valley. We got to sell some of these unique stories, which we used to do. We got to get back that in the Valley is sell these individual stories and hook it in where, hey, I'm a Northern Iowa fan, but I've been reading about this guy from Southern Illinois. I kind of want to watch this game. And I think that's what you do. And then get the fans engaged in that somehow. Get them, hey, you know what, after their first round game, or they're playing at 7:00, but you know what, the team's going to be here at noon. They're going to sign some autographs, or maybe they're going to do a 10-minute shooting clinic for kids or something like that, that hooks fans into the other teams.
I like the idea. I think this is a really great opportunity, and you guys probably know what I'm going to say. For years, it has just been disheartening to see no students in the student sections of these programs at the Valley Tournament, because those students are the future of the Valley Tournament. They are the Brian Dutlers and Chris Bowsers of Arch Madness 25 years from now. Is if you hook them now as students and get them engaged into the event. The event is great, and you meet people from all over the Valley, but you got to start going sometime. And the best time to hook these guys in and gals in is when they're a student. And so I would hope, and apparently Jeff, the conference commissioner, doesn't listen to social media or read social media. I don't know if he doesn't just read it, but hear this. You want to grow this tournament and this experience, then find a way to get your student sections to St. Louis and create a competition. Make it a competition. Find a title sponsor of the student section. Heck, they do it for the NCAA, the football tournament. Liv Moss, Taco Bell sponsors it. Yeah. And so on a smaller scale, we don't have some corporate entities that would love to sponsor getting students to this event and then creating fan experiences outside the arena for the students. I think that's really fun. Adults like us, we can find our own fun outside the arena after the games, right? But let's get these kids engaged. And so student section, I think, would be fantastic. The other thing is, since COVID, there have been no on-court promotions during games. You got to bring it back.
It's ridiculous.
And every now and then, we all love Todd Thomas, and we all love Todd Thomas doing a music trivia thing or the bouncing basketball thing, right? Or what's your favorite thing about the hometown that you're from, or what's your favorite thing from St. Louis? Those are great. But where's the half court shot, man? Where's the bag toss on the Phillips 66 logos, right? I mean, there are ways to get fans back engaged a little bit more than what we're doing. And so I hope those are the kind of things that we see.
Because if I'm running the Valley and I'm doing this now, first of all, I got 10 teams. I'm putting 2 baskets outside the arena on Wednesday. I'm having a mascot basketball game at noon, right outside. Yeah. Mascots in uniforms. We're playing 5-on-5. It's free. We're going to throw out some T-shirts. I'm having a battle of the freaking student bands inside the arena at some point. I'm probably having a manager basketball game at halftime at one of the games. I'm shooting T-shirts every time out of a cannon. or like Troy State used to do. Troy State used to shoot. We'd go down there. They would shoot Subway sub sandwiches out of a t-shirt cannon.
Right.
At least once a game, it would explode coming out, and somebody would just get hit by 10 pieces of a sub sandwich. It was the funniest thing, but it was a great promotion because nobody else in America was shooting sub sandwiches out of a t-shirt cannon.
Back in the day at Missouri State University, they had a blimp that would go around Hammond Student Center, and they would drop coupons or hot dogs or something from the blimp. It just, there's ways to do it.
KC had a blimp. I crashed it once at Municipal Auditorium. We used to drop coupons every game.
Oh, it's fantastic. So, hey, let's fast forward to March 2027. The first combined Arch Madness is over. What has to happen? Each one of you guys, very quick. What has to happen for you to consider it a success? Chad?
Well, I'd like to see more fans. I would like to see better promotions. And I would like to see 2 teams come out of it that we say, hey, those 2 teams could do some damage next week.
Brian?
Yeah, I think the return of the fans and being able to take that lower bowl, even with the men's and women's combined, to get a big arena feel again, so to speak. And then it comes to, if we're going to protect the 1 and 2 seed, then we better see 1 and 2 seeds in Championship Sunday if that's what we're truly trying to get. And that's really about the only way in year 1 I would call it a true success.
And John?
I think better promotion, more energy, because bringing the 2 groups together. And also more teams staying together and going to postseason because of it. I think that's a big factor for the Missouri Valley Conference. How do you keep your teams together all the way, not just the team that goes into NCAA, but also the teams that goes through the NIT? And I think bringing them together gives Sunday could be the Missouri Valley day for men's and women's, and maybe raise the media profile.
All right. So as you guys know, on Deep in the Valley, Jace, what's up, buddy? As you know, on Deep in the Valley, we love to end with some rapid fire, right? Some quick hitters. And so let's start with Brian. Combined tournaments, love it or hate it?
Impartial at this point.
Nice. Chad, combining the tournaments.
What do you think? You went to the women's tournament last year. You
Yeah.
love it or hate it?
I like it.
He likes it. We're going to like it.
Nice. John?
I'm going to say I love it. I'm 2 thumbs up on combining them.
All right. Here you go. Top 2 seeds getting buys. Love it or hate it? Brian Dutler.
Hate it.
Chad?
Oh, I hate it.
And John.
Yeah, that's the part I hate.
All right. I know this is early, but most likely men's champion in the first new format tournament.
Ooh.
Brian?
I'm going to say Murray State.
Ooh, all right. Chad?
I would think Murray State as well.
And
I'm going to go Redbirds. I'm going to say Illinois State.
and then on the women's side, and Chad, I'll let you kick off on the women's side. I think you have the most conference knowledge here.
I want to say Northern Iowa because I know she's going to have a competitive team, though they are getting hit hard by graduation for the 2nd year in a row. So Northern Iowa's got a shot. They really do. I'm going to go with Northern Iowa.
Brian?
I'll go Murray State.
Nice. John?
Yeah, I was going to go Murray or Drake. For some reason, I just feel like Pullman's going to get him back. So I'm going to go Drake.
All right. All right. Let's see here. When this group is getting together, I'm assuming, to record an episode of Deep in the Valley, maybe for 5 straight days now in March, where are we going to record that's got a great menu and great beverages? Brian, I'm going to start with you, Brian, because you and I have eaten at a lot of establishments in St. Louis.
Yeah, that is a hard question to answer. Any restaurant would beat the Drury Inn Hotel we did it in this year. How's that sound?
That is correct. That is correct. Chad, do you have a favorite downtown St. Louis place to eat?
Say it.
Emo's Pizza.
Emo's Pizza,
Emo's.
the square beyond compare. And John, any favorite downtown spots?
Well, I've been to Arch Madness, I think, 13 times. There used to be the Lynn Dickey Bar and Grill down there in Union Station. And being a Packer fan, I eat there every time. But what's that Irish place across the street?
Well, that's going to be my vote. It's Maggie O'Brien's. And
That's what I'm going to vote for.
Maggie O'Brien's was my vote too. Brian, remember we were there a few years ago and they were recording a soccer podcast while we were eating.
That is true.
And our friend Dan Corbin then went and found that guy's podcast, and you could hear us talking in the background. So we might as well just do our own instead of trying to invade a soccer podcast. So I'm telling you, if Emos or Maggie O'Brien's wants to sponsor the Deep in the Valley podcast, we would definitely be open to that. So,
Yeah.
Well, guys, one thing is certain, the Missouri Valley Conference has made some waves with changes today that fans are talking about. Whether you love it or hate it, or you're still trying to figure out exactly what it all means, this announcement is going to shape the future of Valley basketball. And while we have a lot more questions and answers today, I think that's one of the things that makes this league so interesting to follow. We'll continue to watch as more details emerge about ticketing, scheduling, fan experiences, and what Arch Madness will become in 2027. A huge thanks to Brian Dutler, Chad Harberts, and John Gunderson for jumping on with us for this emergency edition of Deep in the Valley. And thank you, the listener, for spending a part of your evening with us, listening to us talk about Missouri Valley basketball. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and follow us on X at Deep in the MVC as we cover everything happening across the Valley all year long. And from Cedar Falls to Des Moines, Nashville to Normal, Carbondale to Chicago, we'll be here every week. For Brian Dutler, Chad Harberts, and John Gunderson, I'm Dr. Chris Bowser. We'll see you next time, Deep in the Valley.